My quest to bake better bread continues, and today I'm tackling bagels. Woo! So exciting! I'm starting with a recipe that is very simple. It requires no special tools or equipment, and the ingredient list is likely things you already have in your pantry. Can't do two things at once. My hope for today is that these bagels become my go-to for golden brown, crusty, extra chewy, foolproof bagels that I can have any day of the week. Now the long wait until they're cool enough to cut into and taste test. I'll see you in as many minutes as my patience allows. There is much debate on what makes the perfect bagel, and I am certainly no expert, but to me, the perfect bagel is chewy on the inside, crusty and golden brown on the outside, super flavorful, and toasts up really nicely so that I can slather it in cream cheese. I'm starting with a recipe that is about as simple as it gets, with tools, equipment, and ingredients already available to me in my kitchen. We've got some basic baking supplies, bread flour and yeast, water, sugar, a little bit of honey, one single egg for an egg wash, and then a couple of toppings that I'm gonna experiment with. Poppy seeds, everything but the bagel seasoning, and a little bit of flaky salt. The equipment list is also very simple. We're gonna boil and then bake the bagels. So in front of me, I have 2 sheet pans covered in silicone baking mats and a large pot to boil the bagels for a couple minutes. I am gonna use my KitchenAid for just a little bit of mixing, but I'm gonna knead this dough by hand. One thing I've learned in this quest of mine to be a better bread baker is that I need to get a hand on the dough to see where I am in the kneading process. I found that mixing with my mixer, I either go not far enough or too far pretty easily, and I just don't get that tactile feel that I need to understand how the dough is working. So I'm gonna knead by hand today. So the method to make these bagels is really simple, and I'll include the recipe that I'm using in the description box below. Making a pretty basic bread dough and letting it rise. We'll shape the bagels, boil them for just a couple of minutes per side, and then toss them in a preheated oven. Oh, and I can't forget, I'm gonna add a couple toppings along the way as well. And I'd love to hear from you if you're a really seasoned home chef bagel baker. Please leave in the comments down below any tips or tricks you have for me to make a better bagel. Here we go with the bagel dough. So first step is to bloom our yeast a little bit. So in the bowl of my KitchenAid mixer, some water and our yeast. Whisk this up a little bit and let it sit for about 5 minutes until it's frothy. Okay, it's 5 minutes later and our yeast looks great. So now I'm gonna add the dough hook to my mixer. I'm gonna add brown sugar, bread flour, and salt. And pop this on my mixer, mix it for about 2 minutes until the dough starts to come together, and then we'll turn it out. Okay, I think that looks good. The dough has come together in a shaggy ball. A little bit of flour on my hands. Set this bowl aside. I'm gonna use this bowl just as is for the dough to rise in. The recipe says not to add too much flour, so I'm going to do my best just to knead this all together without too much additional flour. And we're looking at 6 to 7 minutes. So what I'm looking for is a smooth dough that springs back when I touch it. And then the key is the window pane test. So break off a little piece. It should stretch, and I should be able to see late without it breaking. There we go. That's exciting, we got it. Okay, I'm just gonna knead it so it's a nice ball, knead that little piece back in. And then I'm gonna set this aside to double in size. Pretty little dough. Okay, in our same bowl, looks great. Now cover with a kitchen towel, and I'm gonna set this aside to proof for like 60 to 90 minutes until it doubles in size. See you in a sec. Moment of truth. Our dough rose, that's nice. It looks like it's doubled in size. So my second favorite part of bread baking is the old punch down. Okay, so we're ready to form our bagels. A little bit of flour. Oh, it feels really nice. Cool. Okay, so I'm gonna separate this dough into 8 pieces. I have my 2 baking sheets with silicone mats on them. And when I form the bagels, this is where they're gonna rest. Making a little ball, and then using my fingers, make a little hole in the middle. And gradually extend that till it's a couple inches. Bagel number 1 done. Last one. All done. These now need to sit for just a couple minutes, covered while I get our water ready to go, and I'm gonna move us over to the stove to boil these bagels. So the first step is to this heavily boiling water. I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of honey, 4 tablespoons, and stir that in. Perfect. And now I'm dropping one by one our bagels and doing about a minute per side. Using a spider, I'm just gonna make sure they don't stick together. Okay, a little flipperoo. This is cool. Look at the difference in size between the bagels. Very exciting. Okay, these look great. That's been a minute on the second side. So back onto our baking tray. And then in with our second load of bagels. Look at these beautiful bagels. They are certainly not perfect, but they're not bad for a first attempt. Okay, so they're cool enough to handle. And the recipe says that you can kind of reshape them a little bit. If you lost any of the centers, just gently reshape them. Oh, that one's a good one. Okay, so they're cool to the touch. Now it's time to egg wash. And then I have 3 toppings here. Poppy seeds, everything bagel seasoning, and of course a little bit of flaky salt. So I'm gonna do 2 in each of those and 1 plain, just with the egg wash. I don't think I need to have as much salt as I did seasoning. It's probably plenty. So exciting, bagels going into the oven. They're going in at 450 for 20 to 25 minutes, and I'm gonna rotate them halfway. And I'll show you when they come out. Cross your fingers. Now the long wait until they're cool enough to cut into and taste test. I'll see you in as many minutes as my patience allows. And we have bagels. They look really good. And I've been debating which one I wanna try, and I think I have to try the plain one just because we're testing this recipe. So I'm gonna get into one of these plain ones. And I'm gonna do 2 tests, one of just the bagel itself, and then one with a little bit of cream cheese on top. Looks really good. Very exciting. Now, typically I would toast this, but I want to test it with cream cheese not toasted. Okay, first, plain bagel, nothing on it. It's really good. So you know that kind of tangy taste that a bagel has? I think it's typically made by like a combination of baking soda maybe in the water, or barley malt syrup or powder, which is a specialty ingredient that I don't have on hand, so didn't use a recipe that had it today. But I think the honey kind of does the same thing. You get a little bit of that tang when you first taste it, which is awesome. So I know a lot of people have a lot more sophisticated palate than I do for bagels, but this to me tastes like a really good bagel. Okay, let's try it with a little bit of cream cheese. Get that crusty. Well, we did it. We made bagels. The more I practice bread, the more I realize it's not actually that hard. I've gotten pretty good results out of my last few bakes, and I'm just thrilled with that, and these bagels are no exception. I will include the recipe in the description box below because this is a pretty good beginner, no special tools or equipment, no special ingredients type of recipe. I would highly recommend it. Do you have a special bagel recipe? I'd love to hear in the comments down below, and let me know what you like to eat on your bagels, how you like to eat them. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it when you do. If you liked this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more and stick around, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you, and I look forward to seeing you here next time. Cheers.